But since we don't have the ability to record a live video, I'll just record a regular recording while simultaneously doing the regular show here for you. So what we're going to be doing here is a little bit different than what we've been previously doing on our shows. I'm actually just going to be going over some of the previously written works that I've got posted here. There's quite a few. Now, I would fully encourage anybody who is actively listening, who knows how to get a hold of me, please do. Shoot me a message of any type if you'd like to discuss any particular topics. This is going to be specifically relating to any online followings that there might be, or anybody in the community that might be listening as well, because I know that there's been a few people that have been tuning in every once in a while. Now, I would just like to say thank you and thanks for joining us today on the Info Assault, hosted live by jessfm.ca and by yours truly. My name is Thomas James Arelis Carpenter. Now, what I'm actually going to be reading for you today is a little bit of some of the things that I've found when doing research online, specifically relating to American politics and Donald Trump. Now, as most of you probably are aware, I am the administrator for a group of approximately 100,000 people, which I have a relatively similar viewpoint towards this particular individual. But some of you are probably wondering why I've become so focused specifically on highlighting Donald Trump. Now, he's got a multitude of flaws and shortcomings, which I've got no issue highlighting, but this isn't typically the actions of a good-hearted Christian boy, much less highlighting these things that a billionaire presidential candidate would do. Now, it has come to my attention that Donald Trump is not only deceitful, but he's also invested entirely in his own self-interest. Now, what I mean by this is he has no interest in anybody whom doesn't serve him a purpose personally. And this is consistent if you look at any of his past actions, which I'm going to spend a little bit of time doing today. You may think that it's difficult to find specific things that Donald Trump has done wrong in the past, or any examples or types of things or evidence attached, but fortunately that's not the case. There is no lack of evidence or examples or anything like that. In fact, there is such a litany of examples that I literally need to break it down into multiple shows. So I'm not even going to bother trying to cover all of it at once. But I think it is important that people realize exactly what has happened either way. Now, I know there's a lot of people out there that go, what do you mean? I've never heard of him doing anything bad. Have you ever heard of anybody not doing anything bad? Does that even strike you as... Anyways, you should probably check where you're getting your resources and your news from, but... Most easily, one could simply start off listing specific topics chronologically from the day he was born, but I don't have that much time. So what I'm going to do is just exclusively focus on some of the known, public, verifiable, sexual allegations against Donald Trump, with as accurate a portrayal of the circumstances surrounding these allegations as possible, given that I wasn't at any of them, and I'm relying 100% on research and what I've read, and quotes and court cases and documents and things like that. So before I delve into the not insubstantial amount of eerily similar reports, let's talk facts for a minute. According to what is it here? It was the Department of Justice, the Office of Justice Programs, Bureau of Justice Statistics, Rape and Sexual Victimization Among College-Aged Females from 1995 to 2013, published in 2014, if I got my reference right anyways, which I'm pretty sure I did. What it stated was that only about 20% of sexual assaults for female students aged 18 to 24 are ever reported. So to put that in perspective, if there was 5 females who were sexually assaulted, 4 of them would never say anything and 1 would. And that's stated from the source that I just mentioned there, the Department of Justice, blah, blah, blah. Now, why is this relevant here? If some women were sexually assaulted, let's say 15. Let's say you've got 15 reports of sexual assault. In theory, there could be as many as 75 victims out there, or 75 cases, or however it breaks down. But if 1/5 report being sexually assaulted, if 15 came forward, then it's totally plausible that 75 would be out there total, given these statistics. So why do I even mention this? How do sexual assault statistics relate to Donald Trump? That would be my question if I were you listening right now. Now, Donald has been accused by many, many women of sexually aggressive behavior. He's even sober while doing it. Now, let's just go through a couple of these examples briefly and explain what happened, when it happened, see if it makes sense. Because as you start going into these, you start to notice some consistencies, which seem strikingly odd, for sure. Now, one of the very earliest accounts of anything publicly verifiable would be Ivanka Trump herself back in 1989. Apparently, Donald had been accused of ripping out some of her hair, and she was granted a divorce after that. And then at the time, she was citing Donald's behavior as being cruel and inhuman. Not much has changed, I suppose, but that was 30-some years ago, so perhaps the details are slightly askew. Who knows? Although there was a book written on it in 1993 about the whole event specifically, titled Lost Tycoon, The Many Lives of Donald Trump. It was written by Harry Hurt III. And in the book, actually, Ivanka describes her rape by Donald Trump, which she confided in her close friends. I'd say that makes it relatively reliable anyways, but yeah, I mean, you can check it yourself. That's totally up to you. Moving down the list, that was number 1. Number 2, Jill Harth. So, back in December of 1992, as I read it, Donald attempted to put his hands between her legs while out to dinner. So one would assume they were sitting next to each other at the table or whatever. Oddly enough, Jill was actually on a date with another guy named George Houraney, and this is probably why Jill didn't appreciate Donald and his advances. As unpleasant as an experience as that was, Jill actually returned to the estate of Donald Trump, not that night, but in January of 1993, to attend a celebration for the signing of a contract of some sort. During a tour of the grounds, Trump was described as leading Jill to his daughter Ivanka's bedroom, and then he just started kissing her. I guess he couldn't help it. I bet he had Tic Tacs or some such similar mint. Anyways, she also stated that if Trump wants to sue her, she intends to counter-sue, which sounds convincing to me. I don't know. Again, maybe that doesn't prove he's a sexual predator. Maybe he gets the wrong signals sometimes. Maybe he's still not a bad guy. I'm sure there's, millions of people that would love to argue that. I'm not done yet. That was number 2. So, imagine you're on a plane in the 1980s. You're a middle-aged woman who coincidentally is number 3 on the list and named Jessica Leeds. Now, she was apparently sitting beside Donald Trump in exactly that situation when it is alleged that he started to grope her breasts and up her skirt and moving the plane's armrest out of the way. Obviously, these things would block one's reach. Now, this isn't super specific or anything, and it's possible the story was entirely politically motivated. I really don't know. I've never met either of them. Maybe let's go to number 4 on the list. Kristen Anderson, who tells almost an identical tale in the 1990s of Trump groping up her skirt in a Manhattan nightclub. Fortunately, that time, she told her friends about the incident. So it is much more likely because she told people when it happened. Number 5. I am numbering these for a very good reason here. Kathy Heller was apparently in 1987 grabbed by Trump in front of her husband and children. So that was a good experience for everybody, I'm sure. While he kissed her on the side of the mouth. Now this, they could have used the word cheek, but it wasn't the cheek, I would gather. And as she tried to pull away, now this is starting to become semi-mundane at this point. We've gotten to 5 people who have all told different stories, different places, different times, but similar things have happened. But this really shouldn't be a mundane type of story. These are 5 different women with unique, traumatizing stories. And they've all reported these experiences with Donald Trump. Now, let me just remind you, I told you some statistics earlier about 20% of people who experience a sexual assault reporting it. These are 5 women who are reporting it. So, some real quick math, 5 times 25. In theory, there could be 25 women out there. But let's move on to number 6, because we're not even close to done yet. Number 6 is Temple Taggart McDowell, who in 1997 was Miss Utah, USA, and was also sexually assaulted by Trump with a barrage of kisses and embraces in front of her chaperone at the time. Thereafter, Temple was not allowed to be left alone with Donald Trump. Isn't that odd? Now, as a side note, Temple McDowell is Republican. She has no interest in making the sexual assault claim for any obvious political reasons. I would say that makes it pretty likely to be true. Now, the next on that I've got written down here on the list is number 7, Karina Virginia, whom in 1998 claims Trump grabbed her arm and touched her breast. I don't know, maybe that seems kind of boring, but again, that is the definition of sexual assault. You can't be doing that, and it's staggering how many people are reporting the exact same thing over and over and over again. But I keep going back to these statistics where if you've got 1 reported, there's probably 5 total. Here's 7. That's 7 so far. Now, moving right along, these are just 7 women who have indicated their displeasure with the president and his metaphorically bloody hands. However, sexual assault is nothing to joke about whatsoever. It's no matter how small those hands may be. I couldn't help myself. The 8th woman, chronologically, to attest against Donald Trump in a sexual allegation claim is Mindy McGillivray. So, back around 2003, whilst at Mar-a-Lago, you've probably heard of that place, Trump spends a fair bit of time there. This 23-year-old woman, again, the statistics that I was quoting earlier relate to 18 to 24-year-olds. So, this 23-year-old woman was groped by Trump and is quoted as saying, "Donald just grabbed my ass." That's directly her quote. This is corroborated by her cameraman, Ken Davidoff, whose job it is to document and watch people as, a cameraman. He kind of tries to pay attention to this kind of stuff. I assume that if you're watching people and your job is to document it as a cameraman, you are going to notice when something happens. As indicated by the previous 7 people in my list here, only about 20% of sexual assaults ever get reported. Now, at the age range that Donald seems to be gravitating towards does fall right into there. So, I mean, this all does seem to make a whole lot of sense in my mind anyways. Now, back to Mindy, however. You'll notice there are a lot of people out there who will quote Ken's brother. Ken was the cameraman, Ken Davidoff that I was just mentioning. Now, Ken's brother believes that Mindy's assault didn't happen. Now, he was apparently there as well, and he says it didn't happen because he didn't see it happen. Again, Ken was the cameraman, and his job was to pay attention. Anyways, I'll let you come to your own conclusion on number 8 on the list. Number 9 is Rachel Crooks. 22-year-old, again. She complained about Donald Trump sexually assaulting her at Trump Tower. Ironically enough, I don't know if you knew this, but if you look up Trump Tower during the mid-1990s, they were helping Russians, the Russian mob, launder money. It was great. Look it up yourself. You don't have to believe me. So anyways, while in Trump Tower, again, Rachel Crooks, she went to shake hands with Donald Trump, and he responded by a full-on mouth kiss, apparently, as the story goes. Now, I can totally see how that might just happen. Imagine you're Donald Trump, standing there, you met in an elevator, closed off, secluded space, nobody watching, no windows, no nothing, and somebody goes to shake your hand, and of course, what else do you do but kiss them? Who knows? I don't know. Again, this is just what somebody else has said and posted, and this is verifiable information. You can go check it. Number 10, Natasha Storinoff. I don't know if you're just tuning in or not, but if you are just tuning in, we've covered 9 different women over a period of years, all different places, all different events, but they all involve Donald Trump and sexual assault. Number 10, Natasha Storinoff is the victim on the list of victims, I guess. She was also in 2005, the same as Rachel at Mar-a-Lago. Now, this time, Trump is described as leading Rachel into a room, pushing her against a wall, and again, immediately shoving his tongue down her throat, I guess. It is super weird that this time there are 6 separate people who corroborate Natasha's story. Now, what this story involves more specifically is there's a butler, I guess, who opens a door, and upon being questioned, the butler denies that anything occurred. The butler also stated that all of this was done within a massage room. If, like, the story that Natasha stated involved being in the massage room. And the reason that it could not have occurred was the room is surrounded by windows, and I guess he's quoted as saying lack of privacy would prohibit Trump at his own resort in Mar-a-Lago from sexually assaulting somebody in the massage room. I don't know. In 2006, there's 2 more reported sexual assault claims against Donald Trump. The first is number 11 on the list, Jessica Drake. This was when Drake was attempting to conduct a golf tournament, I guess, for fundraising events, things like that. Speaking of golf tournaments for fundraising events, if you get a chance, you should definitely check out the Bridges of Hope. They're trying to raise funds all the time. They just had a golf tournament, and they're doing all kinds of really good stuff. But so Jessica Drake, she was doing a golf tournament, trying to raise some funds for something. I'm not sure what. But Trump invited her to a private meeting room in a hotel room, I guess. Now, feeling a little bit uneasy about the situation, I probably would too if I was number 11 on the list. But feeling uneasy, she brought 2 friends with her to make sure that nothing would go down without her consent, I guess. However, Trump saw this as an invitation to sexually assault all 3 of them, as the story goes. So he tightly grabbed each of them and kissed them all unsolicited. They left shortly afterwards, apparently, and then received phone calls from Trump or associates to return to the hotel in exchange for cash and a jet flight. This was declined, obviously, and Drake actually stands for women who may have been sexually assaulted by him. So she was, believe it or not, she's actually a sex education advocate at the time of the sexual assault. So, I mean, it raises a lot of questions, no matter which way you try to slice this. Number 11, that was number 11. Number 12, Nini Laaksonen. I hope I pronounced that right, but number 12 is the fourth reported sexual assault victim in 2006. She was also actually Miss Finland in 2006, so she's pretty, I guess. She was she was on the late night show with David Letterman, I guess, and Trump simply grabbed her rear end before going on air. So this was off camera, apparently. She's quoted as saying, "He really grabbed my butt." It's a quote. Look it up. It's probably on Wikipedia. Keep in mind, some of these are probably people looking for attention. You know, there's 12 people on this list. That's a lot of people to just blindly say, yes, you are all absolutely not lying at all when you are claiming this billionaire did whatever. But I don't think that's really the relevant question here. The question isn't, did some of them lie? The question is, are any of them not lying? We know Donald Trump is a liar. That's not a question. But here's 12 women so far who have all got these stories. Now, if even one of them is true, is that acceptable? Number 13. Oh yeah, no, there's more. Number 13. On The Apprentice, I'm sure you've heard of that show, Trump worked with Summer Zervos, and she claims that Trump has sexually aggressive behavior, kissing her directly on the mouth and groping her breasts, but this is pretty much his modus operandi at this point, I guess. Should we really be that surprised? Yes, we should. This is sexually assaulting women. This is not allowed. You cannot do this. You shouldn't get jaded just because he does it all the time. Now, Summer was even invited, she invited Trump, rather, to her restaurant later. Apparently she has a restaurant, and he declined. I imagine he doesn't really want to remember that period in 2006, 2007, but January 17th, 2017, this year, like just months ago, January 17th, 2017, Zervos filed legal action for defamation against Donald Trump. Basically what that means is Donald Trump, said she's lying, and so she sued him. She goes, no, I'm not lying, and I'm gonna sue you for that, because I'm not a liar. You know, I would tend to believe her. Does that make me crazy? I don't know. After 13 other people, maybe less so. Maybe less so. 14. Number 14. You know, I think I'm gonna stop pretty soon here. This is getting exasperating. I mean, I've been going on for almost half an hour, literally just listing these people and just the briefest of descriptions about this, and this is crazy. If you guys didn't know about some of this stuff, well, I'm glad I was here to tell you about it. That's all I can say. So, number 14. Now, she was one of the few women that wished to remain unnamed. Strangely enough, she considered that there would be negative repercussions to going public with allegations of sexual assault against a billionaire, but she did want it to be known that it happened. You can take that either way. I mean, we've got 13 other cases that we could talk about, but so number 14 is the friend of Erin Burnett. So Erin Burnett's a reporter. She reported on her friend's story anonymously. Apparently, she was ushered into the office, Tic Tacs, sexual assault. Now, she ran and told her story a little less than 6 years later, which, unnamed source 6 years later, who knows. Number 15, Cassandra Searles. She was Miss Washington in 2013, so, got taste at least. Who posted repeatedly. She posted this online. There's proof online of this still. You can go search it yourself. Cassandra Cassandra Searles, Miss Washington 2013. She posted continuously about how Trump would continually grope her butt. The Trump campaign simply made no comment. That was 15. It's 15 separate examples of things. Sexual assaults, specifically, for Donald Trump. I don't know if that's impacting you at all here. For me personally, I would start to just think, what else might I not know about? Is it possible that there's more to the story than what I'm personally realizing here? I know that for myself, I've done a lot of research either way. I've spent a lot of time researching both parties. I've spent a lot of time researching individuals from both parties. One of my earliest posts that I made was after I started making all of this research and into both the Democratic and Republican parties, specifically into Hillary and Donald Trump. Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. This was about a year ago now, and the election was starting to appear much more narrow. It looked like it was coming down to Hillary and Donald. And this is when I started to hear some really just off-the-wall crazy stuff about both of these people. Now, I don't know if any of you guys actually know me in person, but I have always been conservative. Christian, white, heterosexual guy. So instantly I'm hearing this Hillary stuff, and there's some crazy things. And so I started looking into it. I start checking. I go to Google. I go and I search hard. Now, it is flooded with all kinds of non-reliable stuff. Things that you can't verify, sources that remain unnamed, places, things, people. There's always doubt. There's always something that doesn't make sense. There was never that aha moment. I could never find anything super, super bad. So I started doing the same research about Donald Trump because I'd heard equally crazy things about him. But what was really shocking is it turned out to be true. And the things that I heard suddenly weren't so crazy because he's been doing this stuff for years and years. This isn't new. This is old news. That's why people aren't shocked when they hear this stuff anymore, is because it's expected at this point. But I don't think that people are really putting two and two together about how this is going to implicate and affect the rest of, life in general when it's the president making these decisions now instead of just billionaire Donald Trump, apprentice, whatever. Because now we're getting into territory where Trump has always been out for himself. He's always been looking to increase his own personal wealth, his own personal self-interests. And that means that if you've got money, you can buy the president. And that's not right. That's pretty much exactly the opposite of everything that they ever planned on happening when they made democracy in general. That's not how it's supposed to work. Which leaves, you know, people in an interesting position. They go, well, what's the worst that can happen? You know, some oil companies, whatever, they make some deals and, you know, make America great again. Putting America first, you know, rah, 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 whatever. But not all of these deals are putting America first. For instance, this has been known for months, by the way. You can look this up. The largest business deal in history, on the globe, on the planet, in known anything. This was an oil deal with Russia involved. And I believe it involved Exxon as well. Now, the total amount of this deal, the dollar value was $500 billion for one deal with a B. So that's, you take 1,000, you add 3 zeros, and then you add 3 more zeros, and then you multiply that by 500. It's a lot of money. It's more money than you can possibly imagine knowing what to do with. It was the biggest deal on the planet ever in the history of the planet. Now, let's say, hypothetically, you go, Donald Trump, Mr. Art of the Deal. I have a proposition for you, good sir. I can make you an extremely wealthy man. I can make all of your children extremely wealthy. I can make your whole family safe and secure forever. Literally. And it's totally possible when, you know, you're controlling countries. All you have to do is win the presidency and commit a little treason doing it. Now, that may sound a little crazy. But why don't you look up yourself? Just go to Google. Now, I think I'm going to be taking a break pretty quick here, but why don't you look up 500 billion oil, Exxon, Trump, Putin, Russia. Type that into Google and read up on the largest oil deal ever. There was an article written back in January which goes over the specifics of what the deal implicates, why it's pertinent to anything. But what I found super interesting about this article written in January, the timing of this is super important, is that it outlined exactly how Trump would need to withdraw from the Paris Accord and how Trump would need to lift sanctions. Now, I highly suggest you start looking into some of this stuff, guys. This is not good. It's not good. But in the meantime, while I take my little bit of break here, I'm just going to play some more of one of our previous interviews again and let you reflect for a moment on what you've learned. Remember, I give you a list of 15 women. And I believe at the beginning of this interview, I said 15 women report sexual assault. It's more than likely that there's 75 out there. How odd is it that all 15 name one guy? I'll be back in a bit.